Hey everybody, I'm back. My name's Jolene Park, and I am back on this Monday with another conversation with a gray area drinking coach who I tried to chat with on Friday and had all kinds of technical problems on my end. But I think I've got it sorted, got my technology sorted out. So I am back with Nikita, who is so gracious to come back and chat with us again. So I am waiting for her to come on. I'll wait for her notification. So welcome. If you are watching the recording or you're joining in live, welcome to you. I'm curious what you guys did this weekend. So you might notice, you might not, I don't know, probably not, that I'm not on Instagram, I'm not online too much on the weekends. I mean, I'm around, but I try to do a little dopamine fasting, so give my dopamine a bit of a break on the weekend. And I'm around because I'm chatting with clients and stuff. My private clients check in, so I am online a bit. But on the weekend, I'm for the most part not on Instagram too much. This weekend I was gardening on my family farm with my dad and my uncle and my nephew. Barefoot gardening, so I took my shoes off. We had a big area on our family farm, and we're planting squash and pumpkins and cantaloupe, and I'm gonna walk barefoot in this rich, nice dirt. And my little 6-year-old nephew said, if you have your shoes off, I'm gonna take my shoes off. So we were doing barefoot gardening. I took some pictures, but haven't posted. Maybe I'll post some in my stories. Okay, so that's what I did this weekend. Nikita is here, and I'm gonna let her in. So hold on, she is one of the coaches. We're gonna have a conversation with a gray area drinking coach. Stand by.
Hi.
Nikita, for the fourth time.
Oh,
So
okay.
those of you who are on live may have seen on Friday, Nikita and I were trying this conversation, and we had, Nikita, such beautiful things, and it got lost. My technology on my end, totally my fault, but I think I've got things sorted out over the weekend. So welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me again. I'm glad you got a new phone.
Yeah, my phone is a little old, and I was putting it off. So fingers crossed. I think with the new phone, things will hold, and I'm excited to jump in and not waste any more time. So, Nikki,
Definitely.
through my Gray Area Drinking Coach training this winter, my enrollment is open for the summer training, which will start in a month, so June 14th. So tell those who are on live, and by the way, those of you who are on live, if you have questions, please pop them in the chat. So both Nikita and I are very open and casual to just kind of roll with this if you guys have questions as you're watching. But Nikita, tell everybody, let's start with just your professional background, because you have such intriguing, wonderful background.
Sure. It's a little all over the place, but I come from a science background. My parents are both chemical engineers, and I always had that kind of upbringing that we help others. So I started off working with children with autism, and I have a master's degree in speech pathology and like a rich history working in that realm with neurotransmitters and all of the different neuroatypical diseases, Down syndrome, um, Parkinson's, all of those kinds of backgrounds. And then my senior thesis for grad school was in stuttering. And I talked a lot about the parasympathetic activation of yoga and meditation and how it can bring this level of calmness that we don't usually get in the day-to-day world of everything that happens, right? We're working 8 to 5s, and we have kids and we have relationships, and all of the things that happen, we seem to be in sympathetic arousal at all times. So yeah, so that's my professional background. I'm also a registered yoga teacher, which I think is my only profession these days. Um, and and have really interwoven the two, all of my passions, right? The science will always come in, and the yogic Ayurvedic perspective from my grandparents will always come in. And the supplementation, on top of that, which you talk so richly about, really has its roots in Ayurveda. So even when you do have a science background, even if you do have a master's in science, I think supplementing any of those professional practices with those things is useful. But yes, so I have a master's in speech pathology, and have worked in educating children for the last 20 years. And then really after I saw what you were doing, and could kind of pinpoint the need, especially in the middle of pandemic, was so grateful that I got to jump on your winter training.
Yeah, I loved having you in that cohort, and happy. Thank you for coming on to talk, with me, because you, as people can hear, you came into the training with an incredible, traditional background in science, in your professional study. You studied yoga in India as well, correct?
I did. I did a couple of trainings here, but before I even finished a full 200-hour training here, I thought it was important that I went back and studied at the same school that my grandparents studied at, which is the oldest yoga school in the world. And really did, even in yoga, we do talk a lot about some of the things that we talked about in a gray area drinking course, right? Which are, how do you set routines for yourself? How do you make sure that all of your body's needs are taken care of so that you're showing up in the world as this well-nurtured spirit? So then we can work on all the other little things. But
Yeah,
yes, yoga is so interwoven into everything I do.
I love it. So, with your rich background, your rich professional training background, what intrigued you to come into the gray area drinking training? Because you came in with a lot of training, as coaches and practitioners do who come into my training. So, what was it that flipped that you were like, I'm going to do this, and why you wanted to do it with everything that you already had in your professional background?
Yeah, that's a great question. And of course, when you're saying that, I have to do a shout out to Tammy, Tammy Salas, who did your course in the spring of
Last
last year,
summer,
last
last
summer,
20, I can't,
2019.
19, 20,
I
yeah.
think so. I think so. So Tammy is a wonderful bright light, and also a gray area drinking coach who studied under Jolene, who I met through Laura McCowan and Holly Whitaker. And, I got to witness her journey of when I first met her and the things that we talked about in that Laura workshop together, and then follow her journey on IG. And she went through your training, and it's almost like I could see through her stories the confidence level. There's a lot of things that I think when we come from these science backgrounds, when we have a master's in science, sure, I have a lot of the fundamental information. And a lot of the things that you said, I was like, I could have put that together for myself. But the way that you lay it out, and this is what I saw during her time with you, was that it's almost like all of the boxes fall in place, right? You can envelope all of that prior knowledge into usable, palpable information. And that's really what I needed. I needed the guide map. So I had this fantastic idea that I knew I wanted to do, and we can talk about that in a minute. And I really didn't know, like, where on this plethora of information, on this huge map that I've created for myself with information, where do I even begin? And so that's what I was looking for, and it was beyond what I thought it was going to be, in terms of laying out a foundation so that everything that I do from here on out has a structure and a format, and it isn't like a client isn't just coming to me and I'm picking from pieces without a cohesive strategy of where I'm going.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. That is certainly my intention, putting this together 3 years ago. This summer will be the eighth time that I teach it. And it's practitioners, coaches who are licensed, certified, gone through traditional trainings, just like you, Nikita, have that foundation of the science, of the background. Um, but a lot of it can be very intellectual, which is very important. It's important to have that basis. But now working day to day with a gray area drinker to rewire, replenish, repair their nervous system, this training it's that nuanced, those nuanced pieces that coaches and practitioners can walk away saying exactly what you said. Now I have this cohesive framework where I feel really confident to actually work with a client. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that we all came in. It's so perfect how the cohorts come together, right? Because we all come in with all of these different backgrounds and pieces of information, and someone's a someone who gives out medication, a pharmacist. Someone's a pharmacist, and someone has been working with people in addiction for a while, and I'm a yoga teacher, and you get this splattering of people together, and the exchange of information just during our cohort meetings spark so many new things, right? It's being back in school again, where you're learning so much just from being around people with different life experiences, and that is so worthy of the training. Because sure, like if you put out a handbook, we could read the handbook, or we could all read the book that you are writing, and have some sort of information of the place that we need to go. But it's speaking all together. It's those Friday sessions where we're doing our mock sessions, and we hear how everyone would have their own input to a different client.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Um, People who are watching, you probably heard me say it, but I'll just say it again. I teach the way that I want to learn. And there's been many learning situations where I didn't like it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
like to jump through hoops just for the sake of jumping through a hoop. I don't like, I love the information, but I need the practical side behind stuff. So that's very much how I teach. So thank you for sharing that. Um, will you share a little bit about your gray area drinking story and how all that has now merged together with your work and your passion?
Definitely. Yeah, that's a great parlay. I grew up in Orange County, and definitely had a lot of pressure growing up to be very perfect. I come from a very perfect family where my parents are very high achieving. They're highly, highly educated. I don't think that there's anything I could do to ever catch up to my mother's level of success. And so that level of pressure as a young girl um, created a lot of anxiety in me. And even though I had the upbringing of yoga, meditation, prayer, breath work, all of these things, that's not the easy grab, right? Especially in high school, it's not the easy grab. And so the easy thing to go to is alcohol. It's what everybody else is doing. When it hit my system, of course, it acted much differently than it did to other people. So it became my quick go-to fix. And then you supplement that by, you go to undergrad, and I've always kind of done all the extra classes. So I did a senior thesis in undergrad, and hanging out with that advisor. That was all centered around bars or wine bars. Going to grad school, you have no time with your professors outside of the classroom that isn't around alcohol. And so really the alcohol consumption, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, just steadily grows, right? You get into a professional setting, happy hours are where deals are closed. And so gray area drinking kind of gets interwoven into my story. And you put that on top of the fact that I come from a gray area drinking household. My father is a heavy everyday drinker and extremely successful. So really falling in between those cracks. So it became tricky, one, because I'm a woman of Southeast Asian descent, to say to anybody in my general vicinity, I need help with this. I'm not sure how to put down that martini glass after the happy hour has ended, right? Or how not to have one or two glasses of wine every single night, right? Um, and so because I come from a culture where alcohol abuse, really addiction of any kind is not spoken about. There was no space for me to acknowledge what was happening until really it was affecting my physical health. So, the question that you're asking about when we first started the training, you so lovingly asked, like, what's your niche, right? We can't just all be gray area drinkers just to be, or gray area coaches just to be that. Like, who is the population that you are going to serve? And looking at Southeast Asian women, just Southeast Asian women, right? Pakistan, Iran, Iraq, India, we're talking about 1 billion women. And I have scoured the internet. I have scoured IG. I really have done my due diligence. And there doesn't seem to be a safe space for women of these backgrounds to have a voice, even to have a safe space that they can go just one-on-one with someone and have the very difficult conversation of, I think my relationship with alcohol has taken a turn and I don't know how to turn it back, or how to unhinge myself from this entrapment,
Yeah.
so which so often alcohol becomes an entrapment because it is almost socially unacceptable to say no thank you, I'd rather have a lemonade.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's two parts here that I love about your story, and being in this with you as a colleague. First, your family story and your educational, academic story and professional story. This is the quintessential kind of high achieving, performing professional woman, achieving throughout. It's part of the family dynamic. And this is not for, not everyone identifies with this story, but tens
Mm-hmm.
of thousands of women do identify with this story. Grew
Right.
early on in their family to perform, to achieve. It continues with their education, with their professional life. And so I think, the more voices and the different faces around that. And then what's, I don't know another Southeast Asian woman other than you, Nikita, speaking out and giving voice to this, which is so important for that demographic to hear you and to see you. Because you're right, it doesn't, this doesn't, it crosses over all barriers, over all racial, religious, political, sexual orientation, everything. And so I'm just so grateful that you're giving voice to the Southeast Asian demographic and population.
Yeah, you and I had talked about this story before, but I think it's a worthwhile story to tell again. That I had spoken with an LCSW in January, whose main focus is to destigmatize therapy for Southeast Asian women, for Asian women, really. That is her calling. That's the work that she's doing. She's doing a fantastic job. And when she asked me why I was going back to grad school again to get an LCSW, she said, what is your focus going to be? And I said, destigmatizing addiction for women who really have never even had a voice to say that I have a problem with something, right? Southeast Asian communities, but really the lines of that kind of go out. And she looked at me, and she's this beautiful Indian woman, 30, and she said, is that even a problem in our community? And I was flabbergasted by that statement by someone who has the medical background, like we're talking about, right? And I said, no, the melanin protects us from addiction. Like, it's ridiculous, and at the same time, that one conversation that I had was so telling about the need for more women to stand up and say, you're a professional woman, you've been working at Google for the last 20 years, you have risen the ranks. It's okay to also be all of those things and say my relationship with alcohol has gotten a little off track.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
More and more voices and faces that can stand like yourself and say that it's so important because it is. And so those, you said LSW. So those who are watching that don't, that
Right.
is licensed social worker. So you're going to
Correct.
add that to your career resume. Are you starting in the fall with social work?
I was going to start in the fall at USC. I might have to put that off for a little bit as I get my own business up and running. But that is definitely a another career path just to supplement. The information that we learned in the training. I It will be a foundation in all of the trainings that I go to, and even in the social work, like we will learn about all of the things that you learned about. I just won't be able to take insurance with the gray area drinking,
Yeah.
that coaching. But if I get the LCSW, I can implement all of the things that you taught me, right? And be able to serve some underserved communities who maybe don't have the opportunity to pay out of pocket.
Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. So let's talk about what you are doing and the doors that have opened since the training, which I always think is fun to highlight, um, because I always see this happening, kind of this serendipitous that when people step through this door of this training
Right.
and take this training, all of a sudden things open and shift in a way that they didn't see in a really good
Mm-hmm.
way or even try to make happen. So that has definitely happened for you. Things are very different. And you watched Tammy Solis go through this too, like you mentioned,
I did. I
and
did.
happen with you. And I see so many who go into the training who sometimes they're on the fence saying, do I want to do this? Do I not? And they
Yeah.
do it, and all of a sudden doors open. And that's what happened for me. I mean, I said too, as soon as I started talking about this, the doors blew wide open and women came through the woodwork, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm practiced ever since. So
Right.
share with others how this has worked, how that's happened for you, and kind of what's been exploding since the training for you.
Yeah. It's so interesting. We talk about this concept in yoga a lot that you raise your vibration either through different education or hanging out with different people who have different vibrational patterns, and you yourself get elevated. And that's exactly what I witnessed with Tammy on IG. I could see the flowering of confidence in her vernacular, and I wanted that for myself. And even after the first day, I felt so much more confident in what my offerings were. What I had been putting together for the past year now felt in my own body to have much more legitimacy. And I didn't even need to put that out into the universe. I never once made a Instagram post about it or anything like that. Um, Quite literally, people just started calling. So, a finance company called, and then Google called, and they were like, "We would love for you to head up some corporate wellness for us." And opening the door to corporate wellness, I think, is so amazing because then I get to slip in all of the other conversations and content. And so, with one of the companies that I'm working with, even though I'm doing a Wellness Wednesday, we've also opened the conversation of, as we ask people to transition back to work, right? Most companies in San Francisco, which is where I'm based, are going back to, if you would like to, in person in September.
Mm-hmm.
So transitioning back to the workplace, and one of the conversations that I had with the HR lady was a lot of workers had to lower their anxiety when we transversed into this new landscape very quickly in the only way they knew how, which was maybe having an extra glass of wine. It was societally, people were saying, you deserve that. You deserve it. We're all inside. Have the extra glass of wine. Join this wine club. These kinds of things. And um, that was how we got through this time, and nothing wrong or good or bad about that, right? But as we transition back out, there is no public service announcement saying you might have started your happy hours at 2 o'clock, and your happy hours might be every day. How do we deeply nourish you again as a whole person so that you can transition back to, there's no quote unquote normal, but all of the things that you would have done before. You want to go to the gym after work, you want to go for a walk, you want Saturdays to be a yoga and beach and rowing day. Um, there needs to be like a backwards action to how much alcohol has played a part, very much so if we're transitioning back into the workplace. And so I opened that line of conversation to her, and it very much was like the conversation I had before, where she was like, I don't know if people would have a problem with that. I don't think our people, like anyone's having a problem with that. And less than a minute later, she said, maybe that's not true. My roommate has gotten onto every single wine club that she knows, and there's a lot of wine that's being consumed in my household. So just opening the conversation, however you're working yourself in, and allowing the space for people to come in whenever they feel comfortable is really the most nurturing thing. And Jolene, I say this all the time to you, the pathways that you've opened for people, is your legacy. It's the drop in the bucket that is creating this ripple effect. Because if I can open the door for just one woman, right? Maybe it's an Asian American woman, maybe it's a Southeast Asian woman, maybe it's a yoga woman who thinks I can't have a problem with alcohol because I go to yoga every day. Whoever it is, whoever I create the space for that feels comfortable enough to come in and reassess, that's a legacy, right? That really is like the foundation for my life's work. So I don't think that even with all of the science foundational information, even with all the yogic foundational information, I could have put it together in a way that felt applicable and not esoteric, right? The way that you break things down, even when we're talking about supplements, even when we're talking about neurochemistry, needs to feel to the other person like I'm not speaking over their heads. So the breakdown in information is super important, and I don't think you're going to find that anywhere else other than the training that you've put together. And the other thing is that I saw this firsthand. Every time you learn something, you put it into the training. So it's this like ever evolving, as the research changes, and we're so grateful that in the last 5 years and now, like, the research is going, people are talking about this, people are talking about what it takes to create new myelinated neural pathways in the brain, right? How important magnesium is for neural pathways, right? All of these things. So the more peer-reviewed journals that are out there, that way when someone sits down with me and they're like, why are you asking me to take some kava and magnesium and eat this protein? I can look at this foundational information and be like, these are the building blocks to your nutrition and your body. Because if we get that all shored up, then we can talk about the deeper issues. We really can take a deep dive into what are your passions, right? How can I get you back on track to doing what you're most passionate about 3 times a week? And that's, those are the building blocks to it, to living a passionate life.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you're taking this into Google and having that resonance and that match with the neuroscience on it and how you're weaving it in. And corporate wellness is my roots, so it just makes me.
Yeah.
And again, you didn't have that Google in connection, and then you went through the training, and this is a door that opened to bring in these resources now to Google. And that's what the training is meant for, is so practitioners, coaches, you guys have your foundation, and now when you add this expertise, doors open.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
because it becomes very specialized and very niched, and it's attractive to the corporate world, it's attractive to individual professionals, individuals, it's attractive to the healthcare side of things. I mean, that's who I attract in for the training. So yeah, it certainly isn't just more kind of theory and basics. It's those missing pieces that every practitioner and coach can then take in whatever realm or kind of way they're working with groups or individuals.
Yeah, I think it's also like a great, we had a couple of people in my cohort who have been doing this kind of work for a long time. and needed the extra, I'm not even going to say confidence boost, maybe just a realignment of what they were speaking about and how they were disseminating information to the people that they had been working with. And those were really fun people to learn from because they had a set way that they were doing things. And then to watch their eyes open to, oh my goodness, you're right. I haven't been talking about nutrition. That's a great thing to be talking about. Um, those are really fun pathways to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So you're doing work with Google, some corporate work. You're
Yes,
in yoga. You're working with people one-on-one with gray
I
area.
am.
How? What else? How can people find you, work with you, that type of thing?
Yeah. So you can always, for anybody who's watching, click over to my Instagram. It's Nikita K Mehta, and it'll probably be tagged at this. And in the next day or two, we are opening the new Instagram page, website. There's, all of the branding is there for my company, which is called Pratyahari. And it's an ethnic name, and but Pratyahar is the fifth limb of yoga, and it is a withdrawal from senses. It's a withdrawal from all of these external things that we utilize in order to bring ourselves a state of calm. There is no like more perfect word for what an alcohol use disorder is, right? Grabbing for something to calm the anxiety and adrenaline and cortisol. So learning how to do that ourselves. And when you add an I to the end of Sanskrit words, it means one who. So anybody who comes and works with me or anybody who wants to use the name, it's one who withdrawals from the senses.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so I have a link tree and opportunities to book one-on-one time with myself and also some really fun things coming up. I'm going to be partnering with some yoga centers and doing some retreats overseas.
Oh, wow. In India?
India probably won't be a possibility this year, but Iceland is a possible, or it's in the works. Mexico and Costa Rica are happening, and so as I kind of whittle this away, one of these it will probably be a gray area drinking yoga retreat overseas. Also one of the things is like I had a really big problem getting on planes, and I travel constantly. And every time I was at an airport, every time I got on a plane and the plane took off, I thought, nobody knows who I am. There's this level of elegance and class that comes in. And so, of course, I'll have a glass of wine, right? And you get to Portugal, you land in Portugal, and, the hangover or the few nights in Portugal where you have one too many glasses of wine, it was a constant struggle for me to unleash travel with drinking. And so I think that has been a story that I've heard many times.
Mhm.
So to reintroduce travel without having to reach for that glass of wine is something that I think is best done in community.
Absolutely. And again, and this is what we work with in the training of really helping you all hone your unique, I call it the secret sauce, your unique differentiator. And you have that with the yoga, with the Ayurvedic, the travel piece. All of these pieces are unique pain points for
Hmm.
people that are wanting very specific resources. And so I love how you're targeting that because there's going to be many who are listening, and there is that travel drinking component. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. The more of us there are out there, right? Like there's so many more niches that are just available. I think that maybe before I came on and talked to you, you never thought, I'm sure that there's a young Indian woman out there that would have a good niche. There's just all of these different opportunities for representation to show up in these alcohol-free spaces.
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
And you know me, I'm a big believer in the niche, niche.
Yes, you are.
So there's millions of life coaches and health coaches, and now there's I see all the time a gray or a drinking coach, but what's the specialty. People want a specialty with it. And we really work on specializing, whether it's that functional medicine side where, as a nurse, there's nurse practitioners who can write prescriptions. Um,
Right.
it's what you're doing with the Ayurvedic yogic side. In your background in speech therapy and the parasympathetic nervous system. There's a coach who's an Enneagram, specialist.
Right.
There's nutrition specialists. It's in the specialty of instead of just like live your best life.
Right. Exactly.
People want to know how to manage their anxiety, eat better, be more effective and high and with peak performance with their money, with their profession, their relationships. And when coaches can come in with that secret sauce, with all of the nuance and specialty of gray area drinking, that's the value. And there's
Right.
for everybody with that. We talk about that so much in the training.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope that you have just as fun of a next cohort as you had with us, because I think we'll be best friends for the rest of our life now. There's so much vulnerability and play and beautiful connection that's made. And the one thing that I really loved was that none of us were in the same time zone. So we were just kind of all, I think if it was all people from San Francisco, it might have a lot of the same stories or we meet the same people. But to have people from Australia and, England and, oh, I'm going to forget all of I think there were people on the East Coast.
All around the US, yeah.
Right, right. Means that their lived life experience is so different, which makes my learning experience that much richer,
Yeah.
right? They come to the table with stories of clients that they've had in the past. I'm like, I've never experienced that. Thank you for bringing that to the table, because that's something else I put in my toolbox. That lived experience that you had now becomes my learning opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not something that even in grad school, I didn't have that experience because we all kind of were in the same place. We had come from the same geolocation. So this is like an up level of once you have a professional background and like an idea of what you want to work, this really brings richness and color to your offerings.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that is the richness, the embodied, what's so unique about the gray area drinking coaching who goes through this training. It's very embodied. There's a deepness, there's a richness to it, and so many layers, and this is one of the layers. And like you said, you can't just read that in a textbook.
Right.
But within the cohort, people from different parts of the world, different ages, different backgrounds, those are the type of clients we work with. And so when we have that as part of the learning experience, it makes you as the coach going through it so much more to offer, as a coach.
Right.
Nikita, what have those of you who are just joining, Nikita is joining me. She is a gray area drinking coach, speech therapist, soon to be social worker, yoga therapist. Yeah, a really beautiful professional resume. Just conversation with gray area drinking coaches. So, Nikita, what have we left out? What did we miss here? What else do you want to share?
I think one of the things that is also, we had talked about like, why is this important, right? And for many people, I think they look at it and think, why should I make this investment in myself? For me, I know that I had a really hard time thinking like, can I make this investment in myself when I have a family to take care of and a new kiddo that's joined my family, and wouldn't this money be better sending him to Europe for the summer so that he could learn? And I took a second to think about the amount of education that would open up my sphere. And I really had no idea what would open up. But creating that fundamental learning block for myself, that even before we finished the third week, I was getting calls from conferences asking me to speak. I was getting calls, just like we talked about, from corporate wellness places. And I had an ability to really formulate like a 5-year plan of where I wanted my business to go. So yes, the investment was not just for myself. The investment was for for all of the people who will benefit from it, for my family, for my friends around me, right? Because the healthier that we get as our own selves, even in our coaching business, like all of the layers around us get to benefit from that. Our communities benefit from that. So I think that was my first hesitation, was the investment, because as a woman, I so often have a difficult time spending money on myself. And I know that there were a few other people that I think had that similar hesitation. Yes, it is an investment not only in yourself, but for every single person who gets to benefit from the training, right? So all of your clients, all of your community, all of those people who fit in the niche that did not have their representation have a face before. So all of the women who, will see my face out there and be like, I'm a Southeast Asian woman. I'm allowed to say that I have a disordered problem with my alcohol use, right? All of those things, all of those people are a direct result of me taking the time and the space to really learn about this. So,
Yeah, yeah. Um, and I certainly, when I went through my health coach training, even my when I certified in nutrition in 1999, I certainly was not making money back during the training, and I
right,
probably half the practitioner coaches who go through my training make their money back before the training's even over. And
right,
you said, Nikita, 3 weeks in, you were talking to Google, and
right,
start opening up, and I know that so true. So I think that is a differentiator with this training, that it's not like you go through this theoretical thing for weeks and then you're like, okay, now I'm ready to make money. Most people make back their investment during the training and have very nuanced, valuable resources to use right away. that
right.
and that's a differentiator. So yeah, so thank you for that. um Anything else?
There are a couple of really fun conferences coming up that talk a lot about these topics. Take Care is coming up next week. Actually, it opens and it's 30 days, and that is a fantastic resource. There's just all of these wonderful things, and I think it's because people like you got up on a TEDx stage and said, "Hey, this is something that people should take note of. That we have all of these wonderful new wellness experiences that are coming up." So, as always, thank you, Jolene, for being the pioneer, because that first pebble in the water that creates those ripples are really um, it adds to the richness and fullness of all of the communities that we touch.
Yeah, thank you. I love teaching this. I love doing this training. The cohort that's already come together for this next month, I'm so excited. It's a great group, and there's still room. So if you're listening and interested, please reach out to me. I'm taking applications and interviews, and please reach out if you want to talk more to Nikita. If you have specific questions about her experience going through the training, all of my alumni coaches are happy to answer questions. I will put Nikita's information below this video, so you can find her on Instagram, find her website, find out more. Nikita, do you want me to link the Take Care conference as well?
Definitely, sure. I will send you that information.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So thank you so much. I appreciate you doing this now 4 times.
We got a little better every time.
Thanks to my phone. So your shares are beautiful each time, and I really appreciate you. I love all the work you're doing. So I just support you so much, and it's an honor to watch you just soar and fly with all of this.
Thank you for being a part of my journey, Jolene. So lovely.
An absolute honor. So thanks for doing this. We'll talk soon, and it recorded, so we'll get it up on Instagram today. Talk to
Bye.
Nikita.